Greetings!
Overwatch is dead, a common phrase that has been thrown around for quite some time. Overwatch 2 is one of the worst sequels of all time. I don't think there's much debating that, or at least it was. The public perception of the game has been awful. Literally dog-ass since its release, with people everywhere finally realizing enough was enough and they left. A dwindling player count, a new quote-unquote killer coming in, and it looked like Overwatch's time in the sun was finally, painfully, mercifully coming to an end. And then, well...
Welcome to Stadium. This is more than just an update.
The Overwatch comeback is real. This is the golden age of Overwatch 2.
Can we talk about Overwatch's insane comeback?
I think we've entered a new golden age of Overwatch.
Right now is actually the best state Overwatch has ever been since Overwatch 1.
Overwatch 2 is currently in the best position it's ever been in since it launched.
When you have a game that is kind of your main game, you know, like this is the thing, I'm going to go home and I'm going to play Overwatch tonight. You become invested in something like that. And it's more than just what can I play right now. You start kind of looking to the future.
Overwatch is for some reason one of my favorite games of all time. Despite my hatred for the game literally every other week, I can't quit this stupid fucking thing. I have improved the tiniest amount since I started getting really in the weeds of it, and despite that, I just keep playing. I don't even like it half the fucking time. A year ago, I talked about the dire state of Overwatch. It was that game that had no clear direction, on the verge of its next quote-unquote killer coming out in Overwatch but Marvel flavored. The game finally, after being completely dormant it felt like, came out and announced everything. New modes, character reworks, just something that was a little different. Instead of trying to copy the other, to be frank, more successful games, it fully committed to its MOBA FPS hybrid thing, adding new gameplay mechanics that ended up being something I genuinely cannot play without at this point. They're not even like big changes, they're more subtle, but like it's genius. If you have all of these assets, why not use them? Because that was my initial problem with the cancellation of PvE. You made a sequel to a game that you pitched to your audience that this PvE right here, this is the reason we are calling this Overwatch 2. It was a shitty reason, but it was the only reason given. So to cancel that, fundamentally change the PvP aspect of your game, and leave it in a state that was mostly unfun for the better part of 3 years, it fucking sucked. So to use these assets that you clearly have no real use for anymore, and make it into something that bleeds into both the normal game and Stadium, I mean, it's actually smart. Is the game better than it was a year ago? Yeah. And there's a little proof to this. I made basically exclusively Overwatch content around 3 years ago. I know, fucking depression, am I right? And when I was really starting to learn how to make videos on the internet, Overwatch was kind of the game I used.
No! Dude! What?
One of my first videos was playing 100 games of Overwatch, and it fucking sucked. It sucked hard. But I was genuinely proud of it. Not because, you know, sitting at your desk withering away is some big accomplishment, but the video itself for my inexperience at the time was rewarding. And I've always wanted to do it again. I mean, I've talked about doing it ever since that original video came out 2 years ago.
This is a little sneak preview of another, larger video that is coming out later this summer. So, there's that.
Yeah, that never happened. And time again, I started it and just never followed through. Because, I don't know, it just wasn't right. Dude, I can't do this. I got pretty damn close sometimes. I solo queued, I played with friends, and every single time I just couldn't bring myself to do it. In total, I have played so much of this game trying to achieve a feeling that I was simply just chasing. But then something happened. I started doing it again for like the 6th fucking time, and the game was fun? It's not like really different in any way. The quality of life is a lot better than it was, and it felt like what was once a dormant dev team finally decided to just unload the clip. As much as I kind of hate saying this, all it took was a Wolverine kick in the dick.
All right, Swatties, time to hero up!
I don't think I need to be the one to tell you that Marvel is the biggest IP of the 2000s. Movies, shows, Nadim.
Oh no.
Then why are we here? Because I took the damn bait!
Shit, even video games. This era of pop culture has been dominated by the emergence of nerd culture. And I think maybe the most what the fuck announcement ever was this Chinese company that you definitely have never heard of. They're going to make a 6v6 hero shooter with Marvel characters. And my first thought upon hearing this announcement was, oh fuck. The bubble is going to pop. Hero shooters I've always viewed as nothing more than a fad. It's a fad that won't fucking go away, so maybe there's some actual staying power. But it seems like every few years there's a new hero shooter, and before you know it, after a week, you just give the fuck up. After Concord literally blew up immediately, and with the state that Overwatch was in at that time, I thought it was over. The bubble was going to burst, and Team Fortress 2 was somehow going to keep going, because that's just what happens with that game. So to see the biggest IP in the millennium make what could have essentially been seen as a spiritual sequel to Overwatch, it was confusing. And then the game came out, and it was kind of fun, or maybe I was still longing for Overwatch to be good. That when presented with a, let's be frank, not you, same core game, it was weirdly refreshing. Plus, as a self-proclaimed Marvel shill, I mean, I was living the good life. I even put money into the Battle Pass, which is something I never do, and I frown upon those who do. But fuck, look at that Magneto skin. The game felt good to play, like it worked. But as much as I don't agree with the sentiment that Overwatch was dying when it came to Marvel Rivals release, I do feel like its release and subsequent success, something that I genuinely couldn't believe, because to me, this was a bubble that was going to pop. And maybe it would have if Marvel Rivals didn't take over the more broad gaming landscape in the winter. But that's, you know, a hypothetical, because it surpassed millions upon millions of players on launch, and there's probably a few good reasons for it. One, the game was free to play, making its money back in the store that featured skins of these characters from the films they appeared in, and the Battle Pass. Two, Marvel is the biggest IP of the 2010s, so to pair a free game with the franchise that boasts the second highest grossing movie of all time, I mean, it was always going to be a hit. Word of mouth was that this game was good. Updates came and people left. The insane high Marvel Rivals started as dissipated, and like every game that's really big, found a real core player base that is still fairly massive. And by doing this and seeing all of these beautiful little quality of life changes, and what I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming Marvel Rivals took a percentage of Overwatch's players, well, they decided to unload the clip and change a lot of how the game was both presented and how it played. So in short, the mouse saved Overwatch. That's the headline. No, for real, I don't know if it was growing pressure from Marvel Rivals or what, but coincidentally, Marvel Rivals comes out, has a huge release. With the backing of the mouse, NetEase was able to make a game almost as big as Overwatch upon release, and it had things the community was kind of dying for. Character bans and competitive play, because you should have a vote in what you're doing and the type of game you're playing. A game at the time felt decently polished, like there was a certain degree of care in the product coming out, something that Overwatch clearly lacked at that time. New, interesting concepts added to the games, but team-ups that unlocked special abilities or passes is a nice switch-up and makes characters that were sometimes poo-poo doo-doo good. I'll never forget you, Magneto Sword. Marvel Rivals was kind of a breath of fresh air, seeing a different look at how someone else would make Overwatch, and it was pretty fun. Despite constant pushback from the player base at times, the devs sticking to open queue is a good choice, even still, because it keeps it different from Overwatch, where someone can master a role, only play that role, and be fine. In Rivals, it took knowing a little bit of everything to truly be successful, even if your teammates decided to insta-lock DPS and do nothing on the role while you're over there either tanking or keeping them up, forcing it into OT and losing and then staring blankly at your screen as Rage, or in this case, the ghost of Christopher Barnes' Spider-Man, starts to take over your entire body.
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
And the thing is, I don't think it's nearly as deep as the community might believe. I believe a lot of these things were always in the pipeline when it comes to future updates of Overwatch. Hero bans, map bans, perks, Stadium. I mean, when it comes to Stadium, it isn't something you do in 5 months. Do I think seeing a positive feedback from hero bans made the devs push that forward? Absolutely. Marvel Rivals added so many new-ish things that were positively seen by the player base that in turn it helped Overwatch see that these quality of life features would work and be perceived well. Character bans, map bans, this stuff isn't new. The timing is just peculiar to say the least. Do I think Overwatch looks like how it does now in November of 2025 without the wake-up call that Marvel Rivals gave them? No. I think it's a very easy conclusion to draw that in seeing people's receptions to something like bans and perks and the team-up abilities, it probably gave them some comfort in going forward with these changes as fast and as rapid as they did. Of course, they still had to drip feed you. I mean, that's the Blizzard way and the AAA way, am I right, fellas? But overall, everything Marvel Rivals did for Overwatch was for the best. And you've got to really be at rock bottom to be able to lift yourself up. And God, it really feels like we are no longer at rock bottom. Marvel Rivals is a game I played for a bit. I had my fun with it and then I quit. It was something that was kind of less enticing for me to play, coming at a time in my life when I was trying to quit the hero shooter genre altogether. Boy, that lasted a long fucking time. And there's a lot I personally have taken away from it. There were times I felt character design was lazy, much like all the Overwatch 2 exclusive characters. I felt that the destructible environment, though a neat idea, could really get in the way and was more of a nuisance more than anything else. I think the support role was at time kind of neat, and then really fucking bad for a large majority of the early seasons.
We are undefeatable! Co-op time! Disappear! I am ready to put on a show!
I felt the rank resets took a lot out of you. By the time I finished getting my rank after like season 2, I was just done. And like the bad faith argument would be, oh, the game got really sweaty, but it's a competitive shooter. No shit, it was sweaty. But Marvel Rivals was merely just a gateway for me into fucking relapsing. There were so many times when I thought I could quit you, Overwatch. I don't need you anymore. And I play a new hero shooter and I'm like, yeah, this is better than Overwatch. And then a week later, I'm longing for fucking Zenyatta. What did they make this stupid game out of? It's funny because for as much as these communities dislike each other, the reason the public perception swung once again on Overwatch was because Marvel Rivals happened. It's impossible to tell the story of the resuscitation of Blizzard's second most popular game without the mouse for some odd reason getting in on the hero shooter market. And instead of bursting the bubble is somehow still here, as vibrant and as bubbly as ever.
Yeah, so when we first started working on this mode, we're like, hey, we want to have like another way to play Overwatch in the game, and we kind of like we were trying to solve some problems with Overwatch, and we were trying to provide like new opportunities in the game. And we wanted there to be a space that felt like it was totally separate from quick play and ranked, like the core modes for people to be able to go and play in.
Stadium is kind of a blind spot for me. When it came out, I got super into it, playing it constantly with its super limited roster and climbing the ranks with my friends. It was nice to have something that wasn't, well, Overwatch, but like Overwatch, you know? For a while, some of my friends even swore off the actual core game for Stadium, and honestly, so did I. For about a week, but I found the base of Stadium to be, yes, fun, but a little tedious. And ever since then, it has transformed into something that is a little hard to imagine. A draft of picking players, new abilities, items. It's one of the most interesting things about the game. I mean, the fact that this is real is kind of crazy to me. Now, I think fully committing to League of Legends Light, but Overwatch is fucking genius. It's the simplest way to describe Overwatch, a first-person shooter with MOBA elements. And then they said, what if we just fucking made it a full-on MOBA? And what it did was generate more buzz around the game. I mean, just hearing Aaron Keller talk about Stadium, you can tell how much this mode means to the dev team. And the fact that what could be seen as Overwatch's Hail Mary working, I mean, that's incredible, because that's what this was. In the face of everything, Overwatch 2 felt like the sequel that never should have been, rewriting the first game in about every important category and making it worse. The promise of a PvE story completely gone, which made a lot of people, me included, write off the sequel completely. Instead, I saw Overwatch 2 for probably what it was/is. A way to remonetize one of the biggest games ever. Sure, the game itself was free, but at one point, the new characters weren't. Until Backlash, free ways to get cosmetics completely gone. Until it wasn't. The state of Overwatch was mostly unfun, monotonous, and then came something kind of sort of new. Instead, it committed itself to becoming more League-like. And whether that's good or not, I don't really know. I guess we'll have to see how they manage both the modes now that they do coexist. But what made Stadium such a breath of fresh air was everyone was learning at the same time. It's not like you're trying to get into League right now and being met by 171 fucking characters, all of whom have different playstyles and abilities. Like, at least Overwatch slowly started adding characters. It's getting a little out of hand for this pea-brain, but it could be worse. Stadium is like if Overwatch was unshackled from its sometimes laughably meticulous balancing. The idea for the 5 of you who haven't played this that are watching this video is each round you get points that unlock certain power-ups for your character. These include survivability, damage increases, ability power, and you get your choice of these power-ups that basically can rewrite what your character can do. Some abilities change, like Torb has 3 turrets now, Reinhardt gets to fly, Reaper gets to fly, so on and so on. It's basically taking the DNA of the game and just rearranging a lot of it to make it honestly feel at times like something completely different. That's where Stadium strives. It feels different enough to not just be great value Overwatch. Without Stadium, this video would not happen, because I would have been happily retired from this stupid game but here we are. Still playing because I got hooked on something for a week and then started yearning for the base game. Better to dance with the devil you know, that type of thing. On top of that, having perks bleed into the core PvP mode is also a huge improvement that freshens up the game in a way that's different than devs gutting the characters in the eyes of balance. Now you can just get rid of perks and interchange them with others. Will the balance be perfect? No. Literally never in this game's existence will it be perfect. But if it's at least fun, I don't really know if there's a problem. The thing about a live service game is that people are going to come and go. They might make manifestos explaining why they're leaving, but that's just what's going to happen. Stadium has overall been a net good for Overwatch, and since its arrival has been a genuine uptick in positivity in the community. No more manifestos. Yet, just enjoying a game once more, because for the first time in 6 years, I think the game is in a good spot. Hell, I'd go as far as to say that Overwatch is good now. When you look back at the state of not just Overwatch, but the entirety of the hero shooter genre just 1 year ago, you would see shit from a butt. Like Concord's very brief push into the limelight was 2024. Overwatch's stale, mundane state was 2024. And now a year later, it's in a much better place. A vision that is being seen through. It's not pretty, it lost a lot of people getting to this point, but it found itself. And that's something that can't be said a lot of the time. The landscape of video games is so reactionary to every little thing that to see a game basically get written off, no thanks to themselves at least, but get written off and find an identity, a new one. That doesn't happen. Overwatch has the benefit that it has a semblance of a legacy. Game of the Year winner, one of the highest selling games of all time. There's a lot behind this. This game is one of the only ones where you can feel so back and it's so over in the span of just 3 months. But I think it can't be overstated how good of a job went into making the game better than it once was. And sure, what it once was a heaping pile of shit. And people will always complain about Counterwatch, but that's just an issue of 5v5. However, 6v6 is back again in open queue. There's a different flavor of the game in Stadium. The base game has been reworked in a competitive sense and to give a much more esports feel for anyone at any rank. All things considered, looking at where we are and where we were, I can confidently say Overwatch is pretty good again. The base of the game has always been super strong. It is a very, very good idea, though it does a lot of the annoying live service things currently. I'm looking at you, random IP slop skins. But the devs have taken a lot of community feedback. It's obviously something they care about. I mean, it's their job after all, but there's still a care into it that at one point it felt like there maybe wasn't. Could it have to do with Blizzard slashing a lot of their funding from competitive Overwatch? Maybe, that's speculation. Is there now in 2025, almost 10 years after release of the game, more freedoms than they had prior? Actually, yeah, it seems like it. Alec Dawson, Associate Game Director of Overwatch, said, quote, "But my takeaway from that experience is that we held certain things too close. We are now more willing to take risks and more willing to give ourselves tougher challenges," end quote. And it's probably the, let's be honest, number of failures that Overwatch has sustained in its time helped give this team a chance to grow. And it's not perfect. It will never be perfect. But Overwatch currently is something uniquely theirs. Overwatch is good again. It's a game that made me want to come back to it after around a year off to become vindicated for a stupid challenge I set out on 2 years ago. And I genuinely would not have went back to play 200 miserable fucking competitive games if the game was still the same. Obviously, there are a ton of things you cannot change about it that are still annoying and quite honestly frustrating most of the time. But in the most broadest terms, whether something is good or bad and that's all it can be, I would genuinely say with its renewed presentation of competitive, the risks it has taken with going back on their word and re-adding 6v6 and then making Stadium, that Overwatch is good once more. I hate using that term because deep down, in all of its forms over the years, Overwatch has always been good, just a little miserable to play. Over the last couple of months, I have withered away and seen my favorite screen in the whole wide world over and over again. There's something magical about the Overwatch defeat screen. Something mesmerizing about being 2 steps away from putting a hole in your fucking monitor. I think what I've learned more than anything is that I like the idea of Overwatch more than the actual game. I like what the game represents, or what it was, when this type of genre was truly new to me. I miss the 6 Genjis dashing around. I miss trying to just get one simple win and failing over and over again. And here's the thing. It can still be that, but I'm afraid I am too far gone to achieve that feeling again. Instead, I stare at a bar, and what direction it moves, it will begin dictating my mood for the rest of the day. So I once again set out in the big year of 2025 to play 200 games of Overwatch, because 100 simply wasn't enough. And I wish I could report back to you and make a fun little montage about essentially the hero's journey, but that feeling that I talked about, starting something and just not finishing, it wasn't just my ADHD, it was a loss of passion for what I was doing. When I initially set out to play DPS for an entire month in July, I thought it would be relatively simple, and then at the first sense that I didn't need to do it, I just stopped. It's not like I'm gonna get to the gates of heaven and stand before God and he's gonna be like, you know, you didn't finish your Overwatch games like you said you would. Like, that's not a reality. Overwatch in 2016 wasn't this competitive shooter that I just needed to sweat out. No, instead it was a very casual, very goofy game about a bunch of wacky characters killing each other. Obviously though, that's just my experience with rose-tinted glasses on. It wasn't really that serious and it never really had to be. Then came 2020.
World Health Organization is encouraging people now to play video games amid the coronavirus epidemic.
The world was shut down, and after years of being conditioned that competitive shooters was basically all there was, I was in love with Counter-Strike around this time. Going back to Overwatch, it was different. It was about climbing ranks, looking for answers as others soared and I stayed the same. Playing with your friend 1 second, and then the next, it being ripped away from you because you won too much. It kept me hooked to keep playing competitive no matter how little I was truly enjoying it, because I just wanted to play with my friends again. What changed in those 4 years was that I was more focused on the competitive side, how the SR worked, and how to climb and get good rather than that feeling. A feeling that I'll admit I have basically been chasing for 9 years. I could sit here and I could document each of the 200 games I played, but in reality it's just me staring at a screen blankly, upset at one thing or the other, because I have become so diluted into how I view this game. Because I hate to admit it, but winning is everything. That and Matt and I actually never finished the 200 games. This time being 50 off. 3 months, 150 games of Overwatch later, I still couldn't do what I set out to do 2 years ago. I, like Icarus, flew too close to the sun. I was playing the game not for pleasure, but for some weird masochistic challenge. As every loss piled, every little tap of my desk I would do after I died, I began to feel more disconnected from the challenge. It felt more like it was a nuisance, some obligation, even though I can literally stop whenever I want. It sucks because Overwatch is in a better spot now than like 3 years ago. The variety in the gameplay loop is stronger than it was a year ago. It embraces the wackiness more now than it has in years past. And yet I still sit at my desk looking at a plastic fucking mask, and these last few months it has felt like a nuisance to play. There's a disconnect between myself and how Overwatch is largely viewed now. It's almost hard to call it a revival, but I don't really feel that. I feel the game right now is the same because why would it change? This is one of the highest selling games ever. This is an IP that was a few competent moves away from being the next big video game crossover. 150 games later, and I don't know, I just feel empty. Matthew.
How it do, buddy? Oh, I lost connection to game server.
We have 200 games to play, dude. That's fucked up. Well, here's every single game from 1 to 150. And I don't know how I could possibly feel everything other than fucking despair. Ping-ponging back and forth. Looking at a roster of 40-some heroes and thinking all of them look boring and bland. And I go from role to role, hoping to find literally anything that would work. Matt and I's voice chat becoming more and more disheartening, not at each other, but at the game. A game we have poured way too many hours into. So what's the answer, Matt? What's the answer to life?
Give up.
I mean, shit. What's the point is right. Why do this to ourselves? No one is stopping us. But here we are, 3 months later, 2 new characters added to the game. It's taken to complete the simplest of challenges, playing Overwatch. Right, old me would go back and think of a way why I'm in this perpetual ping-pong state. It has to be something external. It can't be me. But right, what if I peaked? What if these past 150 games have told me I'm no better than Gold 1? And you know what? I hate to say it, it's probably right. I put up some fucking stinkers in here. Like absolute disaster classes. And then I sulk, and not even a minute later, I'm back in. If you need an honest answer about these 150 games, I would literally tell you nothing happened. Like, actually nothing has happened. What conclusion is there to draw? That I'm no better at this game than when I started? Because that's the truth. I haven't improved an ounce since we've started. But, like, that's on me. I could, like, practice in between games. I could try and pick up new characters between games. But I don't. I keep queuing and expecting a completely different result. And I'm not gonna lie, by game 150, I was ready to be done. Throw this in the bin and scrap yet another project. But what if it could be different? What if I actually tried? What if Matt and I defied the odds? How far could we actually climb in 50 games if we actually tried? Are we going pro? No, but we set out to do a challenge together, and my God, are we going to complete it? Alright, Matt, only 50 more to go. Game 151 started weeks after 150, basically having to pick Matt up while he kicked and screamed because though we could both recognize the much better state the game is in, neither of us wanted to play it. And after some minor hiccups at the start, alright, they've got a May. I felt right back on cloud 9, baby, easily taking point. But before you know it, a cycle all too familiar started up again. They nanoed the fucking echoed RAM? Excuse me? Despite doing literally everything in my power to keep us winning, because it will never be my fault. Wow.
So cool.
Awesome, bro.
Oh my god, switch the fuck off, Widow!
Alright, man. Thank God it's over, bro. Wall, Matt.
Watch out for Bastion behind you. Seems personal.
Dickhead, you're an asshole. We fell into the win-loss type of scenario.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Get down, Matt. Get down. Or don't. I didn't know you were actually gonna die right there. I was just making a goof and a calf.
I should have gotten down.
I was trying to get the Pharah, bro. Something was different, though, about these games. Instead of sulking because we couldn't buy a win, we were having much more fun with the game. The first 10 since coming back was with a renewed focus. Did that really show? I mean, yeah, I guess a little bit. Felt like we were playing sharper, or at least looser. But finally, after months, there seemed to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and I was about to finally complete a promise I set out on 2 years prior. No, I don't want to keep going, man. I've had enough. I mean, my passion might as well be dead. Every time I've thought about this game in the past week, I get overwhelmed with a feeling of, like it's almost impossible to hit Q and feel good about it. I feel completely devoid of life playing these games, and it shows. Instead of the constant win-loss we found ourselves in, it was loss.
Oh my god, are you fucking kidding me?
He lost. After loss. And that really gets to you after a while. Dude.
Draw!
The same focus that was there, say, like 5 games ago, was completely gone. The early bits of this challenge were long gone. Instead, it was more of a chore, an end in sight, light at the end of what felt like a never-ending tunnel. But hey, look at me making plays on Orisa, so...
Popping off, Ryan.
I did not want to lose that game. I would have actually probably put a hole through my monitor. So going into this challenge, Matt and I were going to duo queue DPS the entire time, and by the end I ended up just playing whatever there was available to me. And I learned really one thing. This game fills me with dread. Every time I feel like I'm improving, I play a game like this, where it ends in a draw, and I sit here, genuinely annoyed at what I just did. Despite every good thing I accomplished throughout it, I just still sit here mad at the game. And then it seeps into the next game, where Matt and I just play in silence, to the point where we are sweating out literally everything.
Oh my god, the Mercy fucking blocked for this fucking Ashe. Where the fuck is that?
And the problem is, Overwatch is such a quickly paced game that you could be in and out of a queue in literally 10 minutes. If mood remains low, it's most likely going to haunt you for your next game. I mean, by not recognizing this, every game becomes harder to play. Breaks between sessions become longer. My lack of practice, very telling still, so by the time we would come back, I would just be in the same exact spot because it didn't really matter. I felt stuck. My aim was atrocious.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I didn't know who to play. I was switching like a maniac. Now just literally being stuck exactly in what feels like an endless loop. Suck my dick and balls. Even if I am improving, I can't really see it. Game 176, completely missing. But apparently played well, and we won, so, you know, the bar basically stays where the fuck it is. Oh, did I say where it is? I meant start a losing streak that felt like it basically tanked my progress throughout the last month. And it was disheartening. Whether it was just me and Matt, a 4 or 5 stack, whatever it was, it felt so over. My mood shifting toward the game the farther we got, and I knew it would, but the hope was that I would see the game in a different light. And I did. This was my probably most negative interpretation of Overwatch. And the problem is, what am I supposed to blame? Because I knew at the time it was better than 2, 3, hell, even 5 years ago. So in that case, it was me. I didn't like it. And you know what? It means I had gotten worse at the game. Despite picking up more game sense and knowledge, stuff like my aim and ability usage was lacking on tank, when like a couple years ago, it was, you know, just a tad better. So after an abrupt end to a session, it was time for another break. Going back to tank is like being deployed in Vietnam, doing literally everything in my power to win one game. And it worked.
Let's go, Ryan. Holy shit, dude.
The problem, though, is after doing everything you can to win, that queue time starts up again, and rinse and repeat. Except this time, I lost in the last second. You gotta be fucking me, dude. That's brutal. And then, the floodgate opened. But after losing like 5 in a row, I think, is it weird to say we started to loosen up?
Greetings. That was pretty good.
That was pretty good, yeah.
Greetings.
Jesus.
That was fucking Yoda.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was fun. Gotta just let him rip every once in a while, you know?
Wow. Good job, us. Only like fucking 15 games left. Because that's exactly what happened.
I'm going. I can't. Dude, what do I look? What do I look?
It's like we became numb to the task at hand for the first time in 4 months, and we were able to just have fun again. The idea of chasing this mythical beast, getting good, kind of felt completely impossible. Because sure, by the end we could have gotten up maybe 1 more rank, 2 if we were really lucky, but it was so far from being obtainable that even dwelling on it didn't even make sense. We had lost, we had failed, from as high as Plat 5 to now as low as Gold 5. It was genuinely so over. I mean, it was almost laughable how badly we were ending this, quote, challenge, if you can call it that. But maybe it was time to finally, begrudgingly, look inward.
That doesn't work. I'm the doomer.
I'm gonna... I mean, clearly a big part of these games is the team aspect of it. The idea that in its most perfect, ideal sense, every single person would have a role to play in a win or loss. And well, I was playing roles in a lot of losses. Like, let's call a spade a spade. If there's anything I learned over the last 200 games, it's that I fucking suck at this game. I have tried over and over to get good that it generally fucked with how I approached these games. If you play 200 games of anything, you are bound to lose. But instead of recognizing that fact, this bar has dictated how I feel every waking moment. Minus 27, bro. Up or down, my mood changes, and it's not healthy to view a game like this.
My tank is throwing. My tank is throwing. My tank is throwing. My tank is throwing.
Winning doesn't have to be everything. Yet I treated it as such, and in the end, all I wanted to do was win, was climb, was prove to myself I'm not awful at this game. And then came what I would call a very unfortunate truth. After one last little burst, a 3-game winning streak, I was brought back down with a 4-game losing streak. And I look at my stats and I wonder what I could do better, how I could be better. And through these 200 games, maybe the toxic part of me thought that in every single game we played. But after finally finishing these games, 4 months after starting it, it all finally set in. What the fuck did I just do with my time? No, I mean that because through it all, I don't know how much I really enjoyed playing these games. Like, all I did was, in a very elongated way, show that I wasn't very good at this game. I can have flashes, I can have moments, but as a package, it ain't good, folks. Instead of looking inward most of the time, I look outward, blamed every single other person for my own poor game sense. Again, let's call a spade, overly aggressive, constantly dying, switching roles to see if that would even make it better. And when it didn't, don't know, I had nowhere else to put blame, except myself. I have played competitive shooters for the last 10 years, and more often than not, I have peaked at a certain point and chased that same dopamine rush every single time. 200 games later, and for the first time in at least 4 months, I had to recognize that the issue in these games isn't my teammates, it's me. But all in all, I could have been better this entire time. I am not good at Overwatch. 200 games later, so many losses, it's hard to imagine. Maybe the fact that I have been playing for the last 5 years, almost regularly at times, makes me think I should be better. It's honestly a little disheartening to a degree to think in such a long span of my life, I haven't got as good as I maybe thought I should be at this stupid fucking video game. But I also think that's not even entirely accurate. When I first started making videos 3 years now, I was at the bottom of the barrel. If you read that, that says minimum, the lowest of lows. And instead of practicing, I started talking about how the elo works. What the fuck is wrong with me? This isn't an elo problem. This isn't a teammate problem. This is a me problem. But minimum has a long fucking way to go. And 3 years later, the fact that I even got up to plat in anything ever is kind of impressive in of itself. Is that the peak? I don't know, man. Maybe. I just spent 200 games losing a lot. 6 months ago, I set out on trying to achieve maybe the most achievable thing anyone has ever done. Play a video game for a long time. And I did achieve that. It just cost me my sanity. But I think that's a good thing, because genuinely, and this is no bullshit, for the first time, really, while playing Overwatch, I can sit here and say, I'm not good. And it took me an even longer time of reflection to come to that conclusion. After this was done, I was going on a little bit of a break.
Ren, I just told you how much better I'm doing mentally. Don't fucking drag me back into the fucking muck.
I was going to try and finally rid myself of this game, but I kind of like it. No, I do like this game. I don't know why. I don't know how it appeases my brain. I don't know how I can play 200 games of it and get shit stomped for a majority and still say it isn't that bad. But over the course of the last 5 years, I have not really grown to appreciate what Overwatch is, the idea of Overwatch, but all the people out there who really want the game to be good. All the people who have stuck by this game in the good and the many, many bad times. This was originally supposed to end on a somber note, losing passion for a game I once adored. And now I end this journey, one that I honestly thought at points I wasn't going to finish, maybe the most optimistic about not only the state of the game itself, but my fandom of it. Even though all the bad that was the disaster of this journey, I still had people along the way to do it with. Matt and I played 200 games of Overwatch. Only 50 were really highlighted, and that's because in those 200, it was hard to see if we even improved at all and continuously got the dog shit kicked out of us, to an almost comical degree. And in the moment, at the time, there was probably apathy towards what we were doing, and maybe there were probably better uses of both our time and free will. But honestly, without an ounce of camaraderie, this would have been impossible to achieve. And even then, it was tough. But it was just getting to talk to a friend I don't always get to talk to that really just made me want to continue this journey. I think it's fair to recognize that these live service games are going to come and go. You don't always have to be playing it to say you're a fan of it. You don't have to put on a stupid Zenyatta costume to prove you're a fan of it. And what I have somewhat failed to recognize is you don't even have to be good at it to say you're a fan of it. Sometimes you become a fan of it because at the end of the day, there's a shared interest between you and a friend you don't get to talk to all the time. As stupid and as corny as it might seem, maybe the real Overwatch 2 is the friends we made along the way.
Greetings.
I feel comfortable to say now, more than ever, Overwatch is alive. There's a pulse. I mean, even before they decided to add 5 new heroes and completely overwork a lot of the game in time, it felt that Overwatch was in the best state it had been in since they added that pesky 2. And when you look at that, the 2 is gone. I've always been a fan of this game. There's something about it that has kept me coming back for the last 6 years now. But there was a time when I honestly thought this was it. I'm out. After finishing this challenge, again, it was really hard to call it that, I felt like a weight had been lifted. And then I kept hitting that Q button. And Overwatch didn't get better just because of this latest update. It got better quietly over time with additional changes that came with perks and Stadium. It got better with having a real competitor for the first time in 10 years. Overwatch turns 10 this year, and it is honestly a little terrifying to think about. But throughout these last 10 years, I do believe the game was meant for bigger, which is saying something because it is massive. But I feel there was room for this to be a giant crossover IP. If anything, it was a game that was held under a microscope by many people, ready to call it dead and write it off completely. I was ready to be done. I really was. But after finishing all of this, my formerly negative opinion of a game did a 180. Not only do I think conceptually the game is great, I think in practice, it's pretty amazing. I'm not going to pretend like it was always perfect. There are a lot of rough patches in there, but for a game that just 6 months ago I didn't think I would play again, to be here and say that I play this game like almost every day now is quite the turnaround. Trying to get better, but also just really enjoying everything around it. I don't know if it'll last. I'm sure the public will turn on it again. I'm sure I'll go through a spell where I kind of question my enjoyment of it and actually take that break I promised myself months ago. But that day isn't today. What should have been and was at times the most demoralizing of experiences led to me learning how to love Overwatch again. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what changed, but I don't care. I think I'm just gonna enjoy it while it lasts.